Good evening. Good evening, everyone. So glad to have you here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Good evening. Glad to have you. Welcome to my the fourth webinar now. Yes. So today we're going to be looking at self-esteem, the fear factor of self-esteem. That's what we're going to be looking at today. And it would be interactive. So please be prepared to use the chat box and ask questions if you have any questions, make contributions if you have any contribution to make. So thank you so much. We're looking at self-esteem, right? And I believe that it's something that we are used to. I mean, we've heard about self-esteem, we've heard about low self-esteem, we've heard about positive, healthy self-esteem. But for the benefit of anyone who might be wondering, why are we talking about self-esteem? I would just give a brief explanation of what self-esteem is. But before I do that, I'm just going to run through the plan for today. So today, I'm going to have a little bit of intro. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, what self-esteem is. And then we're going to also look at the brain in depth. Then we will consider what the fear factor is and also how that affects our day-to-day life, the different aspects of our life. And hopefully I'm going to be sharing a nugget or a couple of nuggets that would help us to deal with fear. Okay, so yes, my name is Fumioni. I'm a therapist and I'm also a life coach. I have been working in that capacity for a number of years now. If you want to, in the chat box, tell us where you are joining us from. Let us know where you are joining us from in the chat box. And I know that there are some people who are joining us from on Facebook, on the different platforms. So please let us know where you are joining us from today. Okay, so while we're waiting, we'll wait a couple of more minutes for more people to join us. But I am going to kickstart in another couple of minutes. Yes, so good evening. I hope our evening hasn't been too stressful. It's Friday, so I believe we're winding down. We're winding down the week, entering the weekend and moving closer to the end of the year. Please let us know where are you joining me from today. Thank you. I've got Milton Keynes. Got someone else also joining us as well. If you're just joining us, let us know where you are joining from in the chat box. Let us know where you are joining us from. The session, I'm hoping the session is just going to be about 45 minutes, 1 hour max. So thank you for giving up your evening to join me. Thank you for giving up your TV programs or whatever you would have been doing this evening to join me today. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope it's going to be worth your while as well. Okay. Right, so self-esteem, what does self-esteem mean? From what we can see on our screen, it's the value that we place on ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we project ourselves, how we, the lens through which we see ourselves. That's what self-esteem means. And it directly impacts our sense of happiness, you know, the way we love, appreciate ourselves, our sense of worth. That is self-esteem. That is self-esteem. Your appraisal. You know, we have appraisals at work, we appraise what we do. And sometimes we size other people or we look at what they're doing, who they are. But this time around, we're going to zone in into ourselves. How do we see ourselves? What opinion, without a mask, what opinion do you have for yourself? And the reason why we're looking at it is because it's a driver. It's a driver for a lot of things that we do in life. You know, that's self-esteem. So it's very important. When we have high self-esteem, you know, you are conversant with your strengths. You are also conversant with your weaknesses. You know that you have weakness as a human being. You also understand that you have your strengths. But a person whose self-esteem is healthy does not zone in on the weakness. Their life is not driven by their shortcomings or the weaknesses that they have. And the example that we have here says, yes, I may be a strong communicator, but this factor does not make me shy away from giving presentations. So, you know, someone who has high self-esteem, they understand that communicating is not their area of strength, but when they are called upon to fill in the gap, possibly in the workspace, they don't shy away from doing that. They get the job done, you know. And on the other hand, if somebody else comes along to take over that role, they are happy to allow somebody else to fill in that role and they don't feel bad about it. So that's just an example of somebody who has a healthy or high self-esteem. So if you are joining us this evening, welcome to the conversation about self-esteem. Please put in the chat box where you are joining us from. That is very, very important. Thank you. We'll talk about the example. Now, low self-esteem, on the other hand, somebody who has low self-esteem is fixated on their weaknesses. They understand they have weaknesses. And in fact, somebody who has low self-esteem doesn't really know or understand that there are some things that are good about them. They don't understand that they have strengths. They don't understand that they have good qualities. The only thing they see is their weakness, you know. And one thing that is also common with people who have low self-esteem is and I'm going to be using the workspace as an example. You know that you want to contribute in a team. You really want to contribute, but you question yourself, you're beating yourself down, you're considering the opinions of other people, right? You have good ideas, but it's just going round and around and around in your head. You don't have the courage to bring it to the table. Now, at the end of the meeting, you beat yourself up. Why? Because you think, oh, I could have said X, I could have said Y. I could have brought, you know, these ideas I have and shared it, but you can't, you're tongue-tied. That is, it shows that your self-esteem is low. Okay. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of science going into the brain cells. Now, our brain cell consists of the amygdala. Now, amygdala is a part of our brain that deals with emotions. It deals with our emotions. Now, the natural primitive human being, we have emotions, and fear is one of them. Fear is one of them, and it is natural. If you feel fear, it shows that your brain is working well. It shows that you're normal. If you're in a situation or in a scenario where you're not feeling fear, then there is a problem. A good example, you're driving down the motorway and an oncoming vehicle just swerved in your direction at top speed and you didn't feel anything. There is a problem. You should be afraid. I don't like creepy crawlies. So I don't know if you like creepy. If anybody is a fan of creepy crawlies, I'm not a fan of creepy crawlies. Spiders. If I see spiders, I get scared. I just want somebody to just deal with that situation. You know, I'm just using that as an example. You know, so your brain consists of the amygdala, and it also consists of, if you look at my screen, your pituitary gland. So the amygdala is positioned just beneath your pituitary gland, and your hippocampus is just underneath it. Now, what does it do? It is responsible for the way we respond to threat. It is responsible for the different emotions that we feel. But for the sake of this webinar, we're going to zone in on fear. We're going to zone in on fear. Now, if you see something that would prompt fear, if you feel something that would prompt fear, because your sensory organs, your eyes, your ears, or your skin, what causes you to respond, or what receives those instructions is your amygdala. That's what receives, and it causes your body to respond quickly. Even before your brain communicates it, your body reacts immediately because of the presence of that sensory organ in your body, right? So it's what causes us to freeze or flee at the sight of a threat or at the sight of a dangerous situation. But I'm just going to go over my next. So I've talked about fear. Fear is our natural primitive human emotion. Now, the definition I have for us tonight is it's an unpleasant emotion that is caused by threat of danger, pain, or harm. So fear is that uncomfortable feeling that we have. Now, it's uncomfortable, but it is necessary for survival. It's absolutely necessary for survival. And it stems from real threat and sometimes preemptive threat. So sometimes the threat is not real. It's what we feel could happen. Sometimes it is real. How do we respond to fear? We either fight it, okay? So we decide to deal with the situation directly by fighting back, or we flee. We run away from the situation. And the third one is freeze. Now, I don't know if any one of you have been in a situation where you have come across something that is threatening and scary, and you just find that you froze, you know, for the first few seconds, you're glued to the spot. If you've been in that situation, please type it in the chat box. So let me know if you've had any experience where you have, you know, frozen, or where you've been confronted with a situation where you just had to flee, or you fought back, whichever response to fear that you know you've had possibly in the recent times. Please let's have that in the chat box and let me know what have been your reaction. How do you respond to fear the most? How do you respond to fear? What have you done in response to fear? please put in the chat box, identify how you have responded. Thank you so much. Someone said shout. Yes, sometimes we scream at the, you've just experienced a situation that is threatening, maybe not necessarily to yourself. It might even be to somebody else. You've observed someone in a situation. You're trying to get someone out of that situation, and you responded by shouting. Thank you so much. Anybody else? How have you responded to fear in the past? How have you responded? And I'm talking about, your immediate reaction. You've been in a situation and you have reacted immediately. Jump. Wow. Okay. Jump. Thank you. Anybody else? How else have you reacted to fear? Have you fled? Have you decided to fight back? Or did you just freeze at the sight of a threat or a threatening situation? I'll tell you, I think I mentioned about my creepy crawlies. I don't like creepy crawlies, so I will run away from creepy crawlies. And there's been situations where, maybe you were walking in a park and it was quite dark and you kind of sense somebody coming behind you. What do? I would run. I don't know about you, but in that situation, I think I would quicken my pace, and then before I know it, I'm jogging until I get into a safe place. And it's important, especially with the things that are coming out of the media, that we stay safe. Yes, so our response to fear. How about change? How do we respond to change? How do we respond to change? Sometimes we respond in fear. Some things happen or some things are about to happen. Some people, they weep, they cry. And some people are just scared. Some people are angry when a change is about to happen. Maybe in your place of work, suddenly they decided that because of the situation and circumstances or the economy of the country, they're going to have to cut your wages. How do you respond? And immediately you're beginning to think about all the bills and all these different things that you have planned for the year and how it's not going to affect you, how it's going to affect you negatively. Some people just laugh it out. There are different types of response to fear. A very good example is coming up on our screen. Do we remember this? If you remember what happened when, COVID hit us at the start of 2020, how many of you, be honest, and I like you to be very, very honest, if you ran to the stores and stocked up, just give me a thumbs up in the chat box or just say me. Just respond in the chat box if you responded to fear when there was, a threat of shortage of food, shortage of toiletries, and you can see on the screen, no more pasta. Thank you so much. I'm getting thumbs up. Yes, there are a few people that are with me and honest on this webinar tonight. Yes, I will put my hands up. I did go to the store. I did have to top up because I've got younger ones. I've got kids. What happens if there's no pasta in the market? How am I going to feed them? Yes, so things happen. We panic buy. And then how about this one? How about this? Did anybody feel, well, the fuel shortage that, I don't know, part of it was propagated by the media, I think. But when we sense that there is going to be a threat, we jump into action. When we sense that there's going to be a threat to our day-to-day activities, we do sometimes, we behave in a way that we possibly wouldn't behave on a good day. But when there is a threat, we react. We do react. Now, the impact of fear. John Pepper Clark said in one of his poems that he wrote many years ago, and I remember this from when I was in primary school, the casualties of war. He said the casualties are not only those who are dead, they are well out of it. They are the people who are living after the situation. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has, been something that nobody expected, and the impact we are still feeling now, and it will still be felt in years to come. The impacts, a lot of people have been unfollowed, and that has stopped. That has an adverse effect. So there's just a lot of things going on that causes, human beings, causes us to fear. It causes us to fear. So there is a lot. But how do we respond? What other things causes us to fear? Self-esteem or fear has a way of, attacking our very sense of worth, relationship, the impact of fear on relationship. If you are in a relationship, for example, and the relationship is very, very toxic, and day in, day out, you are constantly living in fear. Do I get in or do I stay out? How about personal development? A lot of people I find are in jobs that does not give them any form of satisfaction at all. However, it pays the bill. It pays the bill, and they end up possibly living from paycheck to paycheck. But deep inside, they know that there are other things that they would rather be doing, which they are not doing. There are a lot of other things that they feel that they have the skills to do, but they don't have the courage, they don't have the boldness. They're living in fear that, what if I leave this job and the job that I really want to do, I don't get it? There's just a lot of questions going on in the mind. That's fear. And apart from change of job, you have fear of growth, moving up the ladder in your workplace. What will people say about me? What would they say? Oh, this person that just joined this organization yesterday now wants to become the boss. Then you hear people talking, and you allow yourself to be talked out of the desires that you have. You allow yourself to be talked out from the passion that you have, the grace that you have to do. Getting out of your comfort zone. A lot of us are in our comfort zone. We're comfortable where we are, but there is more to it. And then the third one is social anxiety. Social anxiety, fear of what will people say, what people's opinion about me. People would not approve what I'm bringing to the table. People will think my idea is not right. But how do you know? How do you know that that is what they think about you? It's because you've talked yourself, you self-talk yourself over and over, and you're beginning to believe, the lies that you tell yourself. Failure is another one. Failure, peradventure, you've tried to do something, you've maybe written an exam, and you failed, So one thing that the brain does is it stores memories, right? So you failed before, and you know how it feels, the emotions of being disappointed, and that can keep you from trying again. It can keep you from trying again. Who says that when you try another time, you won't succeed? So failure is another thing that affects us and that we really need to be mindful of. Oops, so that's gone way ahead of my time. Apologies for that. Okay, before we go into snapback, how can we deal with fear? How can we deal with fear? Now, one of the ways we need to look at it is your relationship. If you are in a toxic relationship and you need to get out, you know it's not right for you, speak with someone. Speak with people who are non-judgmental, people who don't take sides. Come out of it. But before you do, it's important that you seek advice from people that are not taking sides. That's extremely important. Okay. And then fear of failure. Now, it's important for us. It's important that if you have failed before, tell yourself, I might have failed before. I will try again. Now, one of the nuggets I want to leave with you with respect to this is you don't combat thoughts with thoughts. You don't combat the negative thoughts, self-talk you've had with thoughts. Sometimes you need to speak out. Look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I am more than this. I can do this. And put it into action. It's important that you talk about it. Tell yourself in the morning, you wake up, self-talk. It's called positive talk. And if you have faith, if you are a Christian like me, speak the word over your life. I know this is how I feel, but this is not my reality. Because we feel fear, right? We feel fear in our hearts. We feel fear. Speak into your life. Speak what you want to hear. And by the time you say it over and over, it becomes your reality. It becomes what the truth that you believe in. Because thoughts, when it goes on and on in your mind, you don't have control over it, but you have control over your tongue. So use it and speak into your life. Speak what you want to see. Then visual. There's power in visual. Remember, when we react to fear, from the examples that we shared earlier on, you've seen a car coming, you've reacted. You either freeze, you flee. How about you making it visual, what it is that you want to do? Do you want to see yourself speaking in a boardroom, for example? Get a picture of yourself, put your picture of yourself, put it on your wall, speaking in a boardroom. You know, there's a lot of things we can do with multimedia, with technology. Put yourself there and speak it until you, because you're seeing it and you're speaking it. You are combating fear. You're dealing with the memory that you've had. Criticism. How do you deal with criticism? People who you feel are criticizing you. Now, why don't you become your greatest champion and also your greatest critic? Criticize yourself. Right, okay. You have a piece of presentation to make at work, critique it, and then speak into it and listen. You've done all your due diligence, you've done everything that needs to be done, then this is going to be the best. This is going to be the best of the best. Just ginger yourself up. Ginger yourself up. Sometimes what you think is not necessarily what you think people are thinking about you may not necessarily be so. They might even want the best of you, but because you've self-talked yourself, you've talked yourself down, the only thing that you're hearing is the negative things that you want to hear. Impact of fear. If you are fearful, you are defensive. You are naturally defensive because everything and anything that anybody says, you think is directed at you. Right? If anybody is walking past, you think, oh, that person is looking at you one way. If they are saying something, you think, oh, they're countering what I've said, but it may not necessarily be so. If you have had any experience in terms of, you've been fearful in any way, please feel free to put it in the chat and let me know. It might not be part of what I've covered already. If you've experienced fear in any way, please communicate with me. Join in this conversation about fear and how it affects our self-esteem. So I'd like to hear from you what your experiences have been. What have you experienced of low self-esteem and fear? What has it been? Now, I remember there was a time when I wanted to, I was learning how to drive. And my husband at the time also wanted to learn how to drive. So I had started, I think can't remember how many years ago. Anyway, I did my training, did the written one that we have to do. I passed, and then I now had to do the practical exam. So I went for my practical exam. Of course, my friends knew I was going to do my exam, so everybody were praying and they were talking and they were encouraging me. And of course, I went for it and I failed. And they're like, oh, don't worry, you do it again, you pass. I did the second time, I failed. And okay, my husband went for his first time, he passed. And then there was another friend of mine, one of my best friends, she went for hers, and it's manual. She went for hers first time, she passed. And I was like, I started feeling that dejected. I started feeling like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I pass? I started self-talking myself. So I left it. My my theory test ran out. I did it again, it ran out. I couldn't get myself to go and write and go and do this exam again. Fast forward 2-3 years after, I got myself up. I went and I failed. By this time, I was beginning to say, right, when it comes to exam, because I already had an history of failure before doing this exam, before doing my driving test, I had a history of failure before. So the negative self-talk started again, that I'm not sure when it comes to exam, because all my nerves and everything sets in, I don't think I'm going to, pass. So I left it. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I was pregnant when I was going to do my fourth driving test, because somebody said when the instructors or examiners, when they see someone who is pregnant, they would have pity. Guys, I failed woefully with my pregnancy. I was about 8 months pregnant. I failed. It took me a long time. But one of the things that I did, and I remember, was self-talk. I just made up my mind one day. I said, no matter how many times I'm going to do this, I will do it and I won't stop until I pass. So that's my mindset, a change of mindset. I made up my mind I was going to do it again and again, and I was going to pass. And I began to see myself actually passing, actually driving. And that's the power of vision. when you know that this is your area of weakness, if you know that, okay, you're struggling in this area, just begin to visualize, begin to see yourself doing what you think you can't do. I'd like you guys to join me with this conversation. If there's any way you feel in the past that you've experienced fear that has stopped you from achieving what you want to achieve, feel free to write it in the chat box. Join me in this conversation about fear. Anytime anybody is talking about driving, I wouldn't want to be part of that conversation because I didn't want to tell them that, oh, I've done it. My instructor happened to be a driving instructor to a few other people, and he would tell them about me that, oh, Fumi knows how to drive very well, but I don't know what's wrong with her. Whenever she is writing the, she's doing her driving test, she fails. It was that bad. But I made up my mind I was just going to go for it. So I did it. And eventually, yes, I passed. I think I've been driving for a good, like, almost 10 years now that I've been driving now, you know. But we do need to face our fear. We do need to face our fear. It's important that you ginger yourself up and take baby steps. Take baby steps that can help you to get to where you want to go. Listen, fear, one of the impacts of fear is ill health. Fear causes sickness and disease in our body. Fear weakens our immune system. It does. It weakens our immune system. It causes anxiety. And when we are constantly faced with fear, it leads to depression. When all in our hearts, in our minds, the things we're thinking of is we are afraid, we are constantly stopped by fear. It weakens our immune system. It leads to all sorts of sicknesses, you know, like we have cardiovascular damage, irritable bowel, and there are researches that have been done out there that shows that that fear causes sickness. Sometimes you'll be ill in your body and doctors may not even be able to understand what it is because it's fear. We allowed our lives to be ruled by fear. We do need to do something about it. We do need to do something about it. So personal development, I've shared with you tonight. Do something about it. Don't fear the change. Get unstuck. If you want to change your career and you need support, get support. Get the help of a coach. Get somebody that can hold your hand, but just go for it. It's best to go for it than to down the line wish that you've done it. Because that's the greatest thing in life is regret. The greatest fear actually is the fear of regret. So whilst you are here, don't think about your age, don't think about anything. Whatever it is that is in your mind, in your heart that has stopped you in the past, let it end here. This is how we can stop the vicious circle of fear from stopping us from being our best. Please join me in the conversation. Put in the chat box, what is it that you fear the most? Or if you have overcome fear, how did you overcome fear? What did you do? How did you stop it? Or maybe you've encouraged someone and they come out on the other side better. What is it that they use and how did they go about it? How did they stop being fearful? Somebody has said, speaking my desire into reality. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes, speaking your desired result. What is it that you desire? Saying it out aloud into reality, letting it become your reality, and it would do. It would do. It would do. Any more comments from anybody else? How have you been able to combat fear? What have you used? What did you do? What did you do? Join me, share with me your success stories. What is it that you did and how did you become unstuck? Right, our time is fast being spent. I'd like to quickly introduce you to Snapback. Snapback is my baby. I've written Snapback based on my own personal experience in life, but also based on the different clients I've had, the different experiences that I've had with my clients, and their success story has prompted me to put together tools that can support you, that can help you to boost your confidence, that can help you to live a resilient lifestyle, tools that can help you to become the better version of you. So it's packed full of nuggets, it's packed full of ideas, and they're quite easy to use. They're quite practical as well. So if you want to pre-book, go to my website, www.boostmyselfconfidence.com, and go and avail yourself, book it in advance. It's going to be coming out pretty soon. So I'll encourage you to please look out for my book, Snapback. Oops, there it is. So that's Snapback. So please join me. So in a couple of weeks, we'll be having another webinar where we'll be looking at the imposter syndrome. We'll be looking at how imposter syndrome affects our lives, affects our relationship, and also how it's one of the points for low self-esteem as well. So we're looking at that in a couple of weeks. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. And I am looking forward to having a little conversation with you about low self-esteem. So yes, thank you so much. Do have a beautiful evening and a lovely weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.